1, and probably because of that delay, my whole countdown will be live on stream too. Hey everyone! So it's been, this is probably going to be a rough live stream because it's my first live stream in I don't know how long. It's been a while. And so I literally only installed and configured OBS like a few minutes ago. And I hope you can all hear me all right and see me all right. Let me know. Let me type in the chat if you can see and hear me well. It's probably gonna take a while because we have like 15 seconds delay because I'm a nerd and I'm always live streaming in 4K 60 for no apparent reason. But it will look cool in when we hop into Blender in a few minutes. So let me show you what's going on my Discord. Here we go. So this is my Discord server. If you want to join, the live stream, the link is in the video description. Joshua is already in here, and someone else. Joshua, can you say something? Does it work? Can you speak?
Oh, I can just make myself a speaker.
Yeah, I made you. I made you a VIP on the server, so you can just yeah.
I didn't want to just invite myself.
Oh no, that's fine. And everybody else who cannot invite themselves, you can like raise your hand, I think. And Joshua can kindly, as long as you're here, as long as you still have time, you can let them in.
Okay.
All right.
Just anybody?
Yeah, whoever raises their hand and wants to say something. This is my very first time using this stage feature on Discord, and I think it's pretty cool for live streams. I've never tested it before, so let's see how it goes. Also, for right now, I only have one monitor, so this is gonna be rough. Now you can see me both and see what I'm doing. All right, so let's.
You gotta get another monitor. You can't have the.
No, I have. Hang on. Let me show you what I have. I'm gonna go to camera mode. All right. So I'm sitting here. This will be like delayed 15 seconds or so. So just imagine me saying everything in sync with the video. So I'm sitting here on one monitor, which is right next to my computer, and there's my new working area. I only just bought 2 new desks, and so this is where I do all my FPV stuff now. There's my trusty old Ender 3 Pro in the background, and then the area where I actually work is this. This is my my living room table and my TV behind me, and I usually sit on the couch here and work from there. Also, I cannot turn the camera any more, but there's parts of my photo studio in the background, and yeah. So basically, it's like one room for everything. So yeah, making very good use of the space that I have. Alrighty.
We're just now on the stream seeing you turning the camera for what it's worth.
So oh yeah, that's
more like 30 or 45 seconds.
Oh wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Anyway.
Okay. All right, let's get going. I'm gonna do a little unboxing first. Well, I already unboxed the frame, but I'm gonna do another one just to show you what we have here, because I bought this camera holder so that I can show you things like this. Hang on. So it will be upside down, but I don't think it matters much. So here's your beautiful frame that you so kindly sent me, and I didn't totally have to buy it myself, and then you just paid it for it.
It's in this day and age.
Yeah, it's easier. It's easier. I get it. All right. So the first thing that you notice when you unbox JB's frame is that like unlike other frames, you get free stickers. That's the first thing that I noticed. You get free stickers because I bought this very expensive Apex frame and no stickers. What's going on there? Why?
Boom.
Why no stickers?
If
So
the Apex had come with stickers, they would say I copied that idea from the Apex.
probably. So disclaimers. I already unpacked everything, so it was really nicely packed, and now it's just a mess in there. But here's what we're dealing with. We are going to recreate all these carbon parts in Blender today. And to do this, we have a bunch of different options. The cool thing is that they are basically just like two-dimensional shapes extruded into three-dimensional space, and that's exactly what we're going to do with them to recreate them. And so we have a lot of stuff in here, and I'm just gonna take out one piece for now. Let's go with the camera plate. I think that's a good one. All right, just to show you the process, I'm gonna put that aside. So there's like two different ways you can approach this. You can either put the part that you want to recreate on a normal document scanner and just scan it, but sometimes when the carbon is very reflective, you will just not be able to properly see the edges. And that can lead to problems when you try to trace the outlines. So what I do is I just take a piece of paper and put it on there. And then I use these very, very, very thin pigment liner. You can use any fine liner pens, but these pigment liners are very, very small. This one is like, hang on, what's it? It's like 0.05 millimeters. Can the camera even focus on that? Hang on. I'm not the professional product showcase YouTuber. Yeah, so it's very thin. And when you trace those, the important part is that you have to absolutely very much push down on the part that you want to trace, because if it moves, then you're basically screwed. Then you have to start all over, and I hope you can see that all right. My hands are all obscuring the view a bit. But I think you get what is going on. So let me, while I'm doing that, let me open the chat window. Oh my God, what's going on? There's so many people. Is this my live stream or yours? Holy,
It's yours.
holy shit! You have done good advertisement for me. Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I don't want to derail you too much. In OBS, there's an option, there's a button, Start Virtual Camera. If you start the virtual camera in OBS, and then in Discord, set your Discord camera to be the virtual camera, then Discord can see your stream in real time, synced with your voice.
Oh, that's interesting. Let me see if I can.
Maybe that would only take like 1 minute to do.
All right. How do I do that? I'm gonna go start virtual camera, right? And that's just working out of the box.
And then in Discord, set your camera to be the OBS virtual camera.
All right, give me a second. Voice and
now
video.
I'm going to screw up your whole live stream.
No, that's fine. OBS virtual camera. And then can I even share my screen on a stage here? You can stream into this channel. I cannot live stream on a stage channel. Didn't know.
Yeah, the OBS virtual camera will just show whatever you're sending out.
Yeah, but you cannot share any video on a stage channel in Discord.
But just set it as your camera. You follow?
Oh,
as if
yeah.
It was an actual webcam.
But can I do that? Hang on.
So in voice.
I don't see. Can you enable your video? Because I don't see the button for it.
Oh, maybe it's only audio on stages. Is that true?
I think so. I'm afraid so.
Oh well, never mind then. I didn't want to take up. I didn't want to distract too much from.
No worries, no worries. So next time, if we are doing this, we might not use the stage channel. So anyway, while you are doing this, just be very, very careful and make sure that the part doesn't move, because otherwise lining it up properly can be a pain in the butt. And to not use any more time, I'm going to use the magic of editing to have miraculously finished already tracing all the parts. You're gonna see this silly joke in about 30 seconds from now. Yeah, I traced all the parts now, and I am going to throw that on my scanner because these outlines are just way easier to scan. And now with the magic of more transitions, we are coming back to... Hang on, I have to get myself back in view too. There we go. All right. Here we are in Photoshop, and now we have all the outlines traced. And I'm gonna put all this away for a second.
And literally just hold it down and trace it with a fine pen.
Yeah, that's what I do. As I said, you can also just put the part on a scanner too. But if it's a shiny part, then it might look weird. I don't have a good example for that now. Just try it out, and you'll see that it will be like full of weird shadows. Maybe not on every scanner, but on mine certainly. And so this is what I do. This also has one other advantage, that is, if you only need like a vague shape, it doesn't have to look pretty. It just needs to be on scale. Then you can just... The thing is, if you trace these parts, put them on a scanner, the scanner will automatically scan everything to scale. So because there's there's a resolution to this scanned document, and with the resolution and the size in pixels, this is exactly to scale. If I were to print it, it would come out exactly to scale again. So if I only let's say I only need like the vague shape of the arm, I have this traced outline of the arm. I can just use the Magic Wand tool in Photoshop and click inside of it, and then I can go to my path and go to create new path from selection, and voila, I need to clean up some random points that it created because my scanning surface wasn't perfectly clean. But I can just select these few dots that are in the way. I can just select them and hit delete, and so I can just clean that up. And then I got my vector outline already that I can use to extrude in Blender or use it with any other 3D software. For now, I'm just gonna show you how to properly do it, how to do it so it turns out to be pretty, and we're just gonna use the arm as an example for that. So, or maybe we just stick with the... Oh no, let's do the X-plate. The X-plate is perfect for that. All right, so if you want to trace something as a path in Photoshop, you use the pen tool. The pen tool will just... let me show you. I'm just gonna go to layers and do a quick adjustment layer that is like grayish or something, so that you can see better when I'm drawing. So the pen tool, if I click on somewhere, it will create a point. If I click somewhere else, it creates another point, and thus I can create like lines. And if I click and hold and then drag, I can create a tangent, which I can use to create any vector shape that I want. And It can be hard if you have like a black and white scan of what you want to trace. It can be hard to see those outlines very well. So what I usually do is I add a solid color layer. Let's go with white for now, and I'll reduce the opacity a bit so I can just see the outline clearly, but it will be easier to also see the pen tool that I'm using. So I'm just gonna click and drag to create my outline. And yeah, so for these shapes, there's no easy, faster way to do it. Just trace it and it will be fine. I'm just gonna do this quickly for this one. And you have to do that for all the parts. I said I would be creating your frame live on stream, but then I was like, okay, that's a lot of carbon parts. I'm not sure how long this will take. I'm just gonna go and try it out first and to see how much work it actually is, because I don't want to do like a series of live streams that will take like a long time. So I tried it, and I think from start to finish it was like a whole day of work. So yeah, that's good that I tried it first.
Manually creating these pen trick paths has always really mystified me. I see you doing it. It looks so easy when you're doing it, but when I've tried to do it, I struggle so much.
There's a website for it that there's like a game that will help you get to know. I will look up the URL for that. I will post it in the comments later. So there's a website that is like a game. It teaches you how to properly do these paths in a gameful manner.
Making it look really easy. And
it gets really easy. It gets really easy once.
The points and how many to have so that you trace the outline is.
Once you understand how these work, it really is kind of easy.
Kind of annoyed, actually.
I'm so sorry.
How easy you're making
so
it.
How many points do you think you need to make a perfect circle?
To make a circle?
Yeah.
2.
That's right. You can just put one here, and then put the next one here, and then close it up. And this is not a perfect circle, but it's a circle. And sadly, it will take a while till you see that. For the next time, I will be not using the stages. I thought the stages were good if someone had a question. Does anybody have a question, by the way?
We can still chat, though.
Yeah, that's cool.
We can chat in real time, but we can't see because apparently stages is audio only, which I was so cool.
I think it would be a cool tool for podcasts. If someone wanted to, if you wanted to make an interactive podcast for people to join. I saw this first on Steel's Discord, and I was like, hey, why does my Discord server not have this feature? How do you get this feature even? And apparently you can only use it if you transform your server into a community server. So I did, for no reason.
What is that? What's a community server?
A community server has different rules, you need to have moderation. When people upload images, they will be scanned by some AI from Discord, and if they contain any nudity, they are only allowed in not safe for work channels. So you can specify a channel to be not safe for work. So you can have all the porn in there. And
I need that.
Yeah.
There's so much porn on my server.
No, but actually, it's very picky. I have like a channel for tattoo art. We have a few tattoo artists. Hello, Edda, by the way. So we have a few tattoo artists on my Discord as well, because it's like a community both for FPV people and for creatives. And Yeah, but we are getting derailed. I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue about that in a second. Hang on. So you can also use the shapes that Photoshop is offering you if you want to like make these holes for the screws. Just make sure to set it to path, and when you are in your path palette over here, make sure that the same path that you were using is still selected. I'm sorry that my Photoshop is in German right now. I could not, I could set it to English, but then all my key bindings would be lost for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, for now, just trust me, it says path in English. If I create like a rectangular path, it will, no, not rectangular, elliptical path. It's always squished to one side, but if I hit the shift key, I hold down the shift key, creating it, it will be a perfect circle all the time. If I also hit the Alt key, it will be created from the origin point where I clicked outwards. So that makes it easier to put these screw holes in. So I'll just click here, hold Alt and Shift, and then I can perfectly place these. And to make them all the exact same size, I'm just gonna take one and then hold the Alt key and move it, which makes a duplicate of it. So I can just create all these screw holes. So it's been a while. We've been talking a while. Has anybody had any questions yet? I haven't had a chance to keep an eye on the chat. I think I'll just move over to my other working area so I can keep an eye on the chat as well. Sorry for not being so interactive. Have you had any chance, Joshua, to see if anybody had any
I haven't
questions?
seen any hands raised in the Discord, I
All
don't
right.
think. There's a comment from Thomas Shoes World. He says, as to the holes, use a caliper and measure the hole and scale the hole based on the size of the object being copied. I mean, that's obviously if you were
Yeah.
trying to cut this out of carbon.
Yeah, that
Which
would
is
be
also,
better.
but you're just trying to make a render, and so
Yeah.
absolute millimeter accuracy is not, I mean, it's nice, I think, but maybe not required. I don't know. What do you think?
Also keep in mind that these holes are like only 3 millimeters. So a little indiscrepancy here will not be it. Yeah, it's gonna be in the micrometer range. So
Yeah.
yeah,
He also
doesn't
points
mind.
out that Fusion 360 has a canvas mode that lets you trace based on a photo and scale based on known dimensions.
Yeah, it's just I think if you're creating anything that you actually want to want to create, that you
Right.
want to print this or
Right.
mill this, then Fusion is obviously the way to go. I'm not very familiar with Fusion, sadly, and since I'm only doing a visualization, I'm just using the tool that best fits my needs. And when you plug this live stream on your server, you said, "Watch Ghost Branch. He's a master in Blender." I only just learned Blender. This is just very basics in lockdown. So this is I'm not
I
a
mean,
master anywhere, and
it
anywhere
is
close to a master.
it is a little bit unfair because Blender is it's such a very there's so many parts of it, right? There's
Yeah,
3D modeling, there's I know it can do video editing,
it can
and it
do
can
a
do
lot compositing.
solid modeling, compositing. Yeah, so
Oh wait,
maybe
I already
calling
have
you a
that.
master in Blender is a little bit overselling it, but your results speak for themselves. They're
I'm
if
I
those
would
aren't
be
master level results, I don't know what is.
I'm happy to be called a master in Photoshop because that one Photoshop I know inside out because I've been using Photoshop for ages. I've been using Photoshop since version 2, and I don't mean like CS2, I mean 2. And yeah, Photoshop I know inside out, and
But how did you pick up Blender so fast? Because your results are extraordinary.
I think parts of it is that I'm a professional photographer, so I understand how light works. I understand how images work, how to set up a scene, and I've previously been doing some very basic things in Cinema 4D. I've just looked into it a bit, but I've never used it professionally, and so in lockdown, I was just like, I have so much time now, and I can't make any money at the moment because everything is closed, and I'm not allowed to do this, I'm not allowed to do that, and it was hard. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna learn something new, and so I want to show you something. There's a website, a YouTube channel actually, and it's called Blender Guru. This is Andrew Price, and he has a series of tutorials for Blender. He starts off with showing you how to make a good-looking donut, and so if you see any new beginner doing Blender, you always see them doing donuts, and this guy is the reason for it. He's the Joshua Bartwell of Blender, and I also absolutely recommend, if you are interested in learning Blender, that you check out his channel. He's a great guy.
That's my favorite way to learn. I seldom like to learn by sitting down and taking a class. My favorite way to learn is to have an end goal in mind. I need to make a GoPro mount and 3D print it, and then say, okay, now how do I find a tutorial for that and learn as I go?
Yeah.
There's always that payoff at the end.
All right, give me a chance to actually have a look at the chat if we had any questions. Yo, Ghost, I'm in the live stream. Voice. Oh, Edda says she's in voice. Edda, you need to raise your hand so you can say something. If you want to jump in and say hi, then you need to raise your voice, raise your hand. There's an icon. Oh, I can show requests, but there are no requests. Okay. So anyone,
If you didn't have Photoshop, what would you use? GIMP? That's a question from chat.
No, I would use Affinity Photo. I think the company that makes that is called Serif, if I'm not mistaken. Affinity Photo can pretty much do almost everything that Photoshop can, and it's not a subscription. It's like, I think it was €50 or $50, so it's very cheap, one-time pay, and it can do a lot. It's really good. And GIMP. Well, GIMP is open source, if I'm not mistaken, and I always love any open source project, but I think my choice would still be Affinity Photo. So check that out. They also have like Affinity Designer, which is like an equivalent to Illustrator, and there was one thing more that they made. I'm not sure what it was. And I was always hoping that they made a good alternative to Premiere. But the good alternative to Premiere is already there. It's called DaVinci Resolve. And I also recommend checking that out. All right, so to make it a little easier on me, let me just disable my camera for a second. And I'm actually gonna switch my working place. So since I don't need to be tracing outlines anymore, you're gonna only hear me talk for a second and not see me while I'm moving things around. And I will be with you again in just a second. Need to see if I can jump over this wire here. Wow, I didn't make it easy on me to get around this place. Hang on, I think I got it. Is there any cables? Oh, hi Edda. Welcome. All right, give me a second. I'm gonna check if this works now. So now I have like 2 screens. I can put this over here, and I can put OBS over here. And then I can go to camera. Oh, it works perfectly. Nice. All right, here we go. Edda, how are you liking the live stream so far?
I didn't see much because I came here 5-10 minutes ago. Sorry.
No worries.
But at the moment, I think it's good because I see
Awesome.
many people and you're really attractive and community. Yeah. Sorry, my
Awesome.
English is not so good. It's not so trained.
Never mind. It's fine. All right. So let me show you guys that if you are finished with all of this, it should look a little bit like this. So this is. Hang on. Are you even seeing this? No. I need to switch scenes. Here we go. All right, and I'm gonna move myself over a bit so you can see this a little bit better. All right. So everything is gonna be delayed a little bit. Oh, and I have to change my monitor up a bit. No, this is, yeah, that works for me. All right, here we go. This is all the finished outlines. Keep in mind that when you are tracing these outlines, that you actually be tracing them inline, not on the outside, because this is actually the outline of the object, because you were using the pen on the outside of the object, so this is actually the right contour to trace. And so you just need to recreate all these different objects. And when you're finished with that, you can use a, hang on, I'm gonna grab one of these. Joshua, you can tell me what these are called. No, you can't. It just takes forever to show it. Hang on.
Which plate are you asking about?
No, I'm not actually asking about the plate. I'm asking about these measuring tools. Did you call them caliper? The one that you use to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is apparently in English called a caliper. In
in German.
It's called Messlehre or Messschieber. So it means like measuring slider, basically translates. Yeah.
I knew it would be
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know.
It could also be called Messzeug.
Ruler is probably just measuring stick. Am I right?
No, ruler is ruler is called lineal. It makes no sense. This is, I think it derives from the Latin word. I'm not sure. Anyway, all right, let's get back to business. I should have. Well, as I said, I haven't been live streaming for a while, so this is gonna be a rough ride. But bear with me. We can do this if we just all stick together. All right, but for now, I'm gonna open the stream on the other window so I can at least read every 5th comment or so. When I say beta flight, I mean beta flight. Oh, all right. All right, here we go. So if we have finished tracing all these, we can put all of them together on one path. I'm doing this by, so first I created this path for one. No, not this first, but you create one first, then you create the next one. And when you're done with them, you just select all of them by holding down the Shift key. And then you're just gonna take this white arrow icon and you can just select all of them. And then you hit Control C, create a new path and hit Control V. And then you have every object on one path. And then you go to File, Export, and there's an export option that says Paths to Illustrator. And that will let you export. You can select which path you want to export. I'm gonna go with JB frame parts. And you can just save that wherever you want, and it will create an Illustrator file for you. We're not gonna need Photoshop anymore, so I can close that. It will create a an Illustrator file, and if you open that, you can use, of course, any other software that can read these paths. I'm a subscriber to Adobe's Creative Cloud membership, so I have all of them. I know sometimes it's hard to find good alternatives, but as I said, there's these Affinity Designer, which can also read Illustrator files. All right, you cannot see anything on this just now, but if you use the arrow here, you can select all the frame parts, and then you can go to export again. No, you go to save as, and then you select SVG, because sadly Blender doesn't read Illustrator files. It only reads SVG, so you just have to save that as an SVG file, and I'm just gonna save that here in paths as well. All right, that's it, and now we can actually finally hop into Blender. So far, any questions, any raised hands, anything? JB, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I was typing, so I don't want clacking to come over.
Oh, no worries.
There's a question from Thomas Shoesworld, who's wondering whether it'd be easier to use Illustrator to make the vectors.
Yeah, if you are good in Illustrator, you can just put scan, import the scan. It also has a good automatic tracing option, but I suck at using Illustrator so much. I'm really not good at Illustrator.
So you'd rather learn to use Blender in your spare time than Illustrator.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just way more fun. Anyway, so if you installed Blender for the first time, I'm just gonna make like a quick basic tutorial on how to use Blender. So if you installed Blender for the very first time, if you create a new file, you always get this default cube. This is just always there. Don't worry about it yet. You also get a default light and a default camera. If you don't need these default objects, you can just select all of them and hit delete or X to delete them. But for now,
Ghost Branch, I apologize for interrupting. I think this is where I'm going to drop out. I got a few other things I got to take care of today.
All right, no worries.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the beautiful, beautiful 3D renders you made.
You're very welcome.
And the little video clip you made for my live stream. And good luck with the live stream.
Thank you. All right. Then I'd say see you a bit later. Right? Cheers, Joshua. So is the live stream still running smoothly? Can anyone, Edda, are you still there?
I'm here.
Live stream is working fine?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Okay, Edda, if you would kindly, for me, that would be much appreciated, if you would kindly keep an eye on any questions and let me know if anyone has any questions that I might be missing. I try to keep an eye on the chat as well, but I'm also, hang on, I need to make Discord a little bit smaller. I try to keep an eye on everything too, but I only have so many eyes. All right, if you installed Blender for the very first time, a few hints on what you should do. Go to Edit and Preferences, and if you have any NVIDIA graphics card, then you should absolutely go to, was it System? No, it's System. Over here you have like different render and, well, it's not render engines, but it's different types of hardware support for Blender's render engine. And if you use an NVIDIA card that is capable of it, use optics. And here you can also choose to use both the graphics card and the CPU for rendering, which will make it really, really fast if you use both. So this is what you should set up first, and then let me quickly go over anything else that I can think of that you should turn on. There's an add-ons section here, and it's not like all other. Blender is not like any other software you've probably used before, because Blender already comes with a ton of add-ons that are just all by default not enabled, and there's a few add-ons that are very, very useful to enable. One of them is Bolt Factory. Bolt Factory will let you quickly create 3D models of screws, nuts, and bolts. And obviously, you can see how this might be helpful for creating FPV stuff. Also, one that I would recommend having enabled is FBX import, which will let you import FBX file format. I'm not even sure if that is on by default or not. But one very important one is Node Wrangler. So if you have a hard time finding them, you can just type in the search Wrangler and you'll see Node Wrangler. Node Wrangler is one that I would absolutely recommend enabling. And then there's one that's called import images as planes. That is also very helpful, because if you have like any image file, you can just import it as a two-dimensional plane and extrude it to create a 3D model from just a photo. It's very helpful. All right, that's what I suggest you should set up first. And now that you are inside Blender, here's how you basically navigate around. I totally would recommend you use a 3-button mouse. If you have like a 2-button mouse and a mouse wheel, note that your mouse wheel is your 3rd button. So on a mouse wheel, you can not only scroll, you can also push it down. So if you push down on the mouse wheel and drag around, you can change your view. So you can just look around. If you hold Shift while doing so, you can pan around, and if you hold Control while doing so, you can zoom in and out. You can also just use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, but as you can see, this is gonna be like rough. It's like ratcheted. Don't know what the English word is, but if you hold down Control and use the middle mouse button, then it's gonna be smooth. So as I said, Shift to move something around, middle mouse without Shift to look around something. If you have multiple objects, I'm just gonna duplicate this default cube for now. This you can do by holding down Shift and pressing D. So if I hit Shift D, I have a duplicate of this cube and I can move it around. If I want to put it like somewhere on the same axis, like the green line, you noticed on the top right here there's a little gizmo that shows the same coordinate system, and it has the letters X, Y, and Z on it. So as you can see, there's a green one that is labeled Y, and if I while I still have the duplicate in my hand, if I hit the Y key on the keyboard, I will be restrained to moving it only along that axis. If I hit X, I can move it along this axis. If I hit Z, it will be only along the upwards axis, and if I hit Shift Z, I can use it. I can move it around any axis except for Z. So this is basically how it works. So for now, I'm just going to move it along the Y-axis and put it right here. Now, I'm going to select this cube again. And as I said, if you hold down the middle mouse button, you can pan around the cube. But the problem is if I want to do any changes to this one, you can see how this is a problem. How am I going to get behind that one to go to the other side? So basically what you need to do is to focus on the object that you want to modify in any way. And you do that by just clicking on the other object, and then hitting the decimal point on your number pad. So some laptops don't have like number pads, so that might be difficult. I would totally recommend to just use an USB keyboard just for this very feature. There's also a different zoom or pan method in Blender. It's very hard to find because the naming convention makes no sense at all. If you go to preferences, I have to see if I can even find it right now. I think it should be on interface. And no, it should be in navigation. And there's one that is called, where is it? As I can tell you it's called auto depth, and I probably won't be able to see it right now because I'm just blind. It should be somewhere. Oh, here it is. It just says auto and then depth. So if this is off, I'm just turning it off for now. If I have this object focused, I'm gonna hit the decimal point, it also zooms in, and I hold my middle mouse button around this one, I will still be orbiting around this object and not this one. To change that, I will have to select this object, which doesn't do anything, and then also hit the decimal point to focus on that object. But if I go to Edit Preferences and select Auto Depth, then I can just click on, with my middle mouse button, click on any object, and it will orbit around where I clicked. It doesn't work in the free space, I think. Not properly. Oh, it works a little bit. It's not very reliable, I think. But yeah, I have no idea why that is called auto depth, but I think that makes perfect sense to use it. So also enable that feature can be very helpful. All right. So now that we know the very basic way to move around, now you need to learn the very basics of how to edit an object. I just hit delete to delete that one. So let's go check out our default cube here. You can see in the upper left here that we are in object mode. If you hit tab on the keyboard, you will go into edit mode. There's always, like, if you hit tab again, you're gonna go out of edit mode and go back into object mode. Basically, object mode is working with a whole already completed object, and you can move it around, position it, and do stuff like that. And edit mode will actually edit the object, like on a polygon level or even a point level. And so if we wanted, for example, to create, like, I don't know, let's say we wanted to create a duck, then we need more than just these 6 sides. We need, like, to make this object more complex. What we can do is we have selections here for points, for lines, and for so actually these are called vertices, these are called edges, and these are called polygons or faces. So if I select one face, I can hit E on the keyboard to extrude that face, which will create new points, edges, and faces. And I can also extrude one over here. And now let's say we wanted to make this a basic duck shape. I think we need like a beak over here, but we don't need the whole face. We need like half of it. So if you hit Control R on your keyboard, you can make you can subdivide this. You can make a ring cut, a loop cut, it's called. And now I can just select this face and hit E to extrude again. And now I already have like a very basic duck shape. It's just very basic. It's just to get you started on how this works. Hello, Melissa. Nice to see you here. All right. So now that you know how to how to make a very low polygon duck. Let's see what we can do with the stuff that we created, like the path. I'm just gonna delete all of this. Oh, and I cannot delete a whole object if I'm still in edit mode, so I have to go out of edit mode again, and then I'm gonna hit delete. And then we are going to go File, Import, and we select the SVG file format to get to the vector graphics that we just created. And I created them, I think, in paths, was that right? Yeah, JB frame parts SVG. So these will come in as a lot of single paths. It's like 97 of them, and here's why that is 97. I have to zoom in. I can just select one of them and hit the decimal point to zoom in on it. Well, it doesn't zoom in very much. They are all black now. This is I don't know why this is the default, but Blender will always create a material. It's a default material for any SVG file that you import, and it's always black, and it's hard to see, in my opinion. So I'm later gonna teach you how to get rid of that. And but for now, let's just bear with me, even though it's hard to see. I don't want to get into materials too fast. All right. So what you can do. So the thing is, why we have like the inside is a singular, is a separate path too, and every hole is a separate path too. So it's not like in Photoshop, as we had this object to be one singular path. It's just like a lot of them, and now there's 96 of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the first one, then scroll down to the bottom to get to the last one, hit Shift, hold down Shift and select the last one to select all of them. Then you're gonna go right click and say join, which makes that one singular path. And that also makes Blender understand that these are actually going to be holes and not to be filled. So now we have the shapes that we created. And if you enlarge this section down here, this is the one that looks like a path. This is the options for the curve that we imported in Blender. All these paths are gonna be called curves. So, any questions in Discord? No. If any one of you guys that are on the stage channel, if you wanted to come in and chat with us, feel free. I think you have to request that, and then Edda can let you in. Edda, you have the full power of moderation. You can decide who you want to come in or not.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have all these paths here. The thing is, we need to know how thick these objects need to get. This is why I asked Joshua earlier what this instrument here is called. Apparently in English it's called a caliper. Hang on, why am I not seeing this? Oh, now I see it. Oh, this is bad, hang on. Yeah, here we go. These are called calipers. This one is digital, so it doesn't only have like the gauge that is on it. You can also just open it up to see how thick something is, and the one on the top lets you measure inside something to see how much space is inside, and the one on the bottom lets you measure the outside. And you can just put an arm inside there and measure how thick each of the carbon parts is, be it an arm, be it a plate, whatever. Of course, I already measured all of this, and for this, I'm just gonna use any value now just to show you. You can just go here where it says geometry, and then you have the option to extrude this into 3D space. Normally, if you click inside that and drag your mouse button around, it will just, you can just adjust the values, but as you can see, it's very hard to get a small enough value. And that's because if you click and drag, it will jump in very large increments. If you hold down the Shift key while doing that, it will go in very much smaller increments. And then it's easier to make this 3D. Blender has...
Good night.
All right, Lego, nice. What was nice of you to join. Have a good night, and talk to you later. All right. Blender has all these tabs, which are like workspaces for different things that you need to do. This layout space is just like the basic setup. Modeling is actually the space that is supposed to be used for anything that is more complex modeling. Then there's a sculpting option if you want to do sculpting, which is 3D modeling in a way that is like more resembles the way you would work with clay. And so UV editing is something we're gonna do later, but for now we're gonna go into the shading option. And in the shading tab, we can select the object, and then we see that it's there. It has the material called SVG matte, which is this default black material for SVG files. And if we click in here and select the default material, the default cube you always get, it's just easier to see. For now, this is all we need. Now we have all the objects. They don't have the correct size yet. We can measure it. We can put in the right dimensions here. And if we are ever unsure if any of these dimensions actually is correct, an easy way to check this is, let's say this plate. I think this plate should be 15 centimeters long. So I can just hit Shift A, which lets me add new objects, and I'm just gonna go to Mesh and Cube. I'm just gonna add a new cube to it, and when I create the cube, this one is so big it's around everything now. But when I create this cube, I get options down here, and I can just open up these options, and it says it's 2 meters long. I'm just gonna tell it to be 15 centimeters. And now this is exactly 15 centimeters inside Blender. And now I can just take these objects and I can move them. By the way, these axes here, if you click on any of these axes, you will get a two-dimensional view. So this view does not have any perspective. So this will be very strictly two-dimensional, and you can view any of these axes here. You can also use your keyboard to change these. 1 is going to be the front view. 3 on the number pad is going to be the side view, and 7 is going to be the view from the top. So I'm gonna go use the view from the top now, and if I want to move these objects, I can hit G on the keyboard. G, you can just remember it by calling it grab. G is for grab, R is for rotate, and S is for scale. So for now, we're just gonna go with G, and as you can see, this is not really 15 centimeters. So I'm gonna hit S to scale these, and the center point for it is offset. This is the center point for it. So if you want to move the center point, it's called the origin. I'm just gonna move these objects over here, and then I'm gonna right click and say set origin to 3D cursor. The 3D cursor is this object. It's usually at the very center of this coordinate system. You can move it somewhere else too, but I'm just I'm just usually just moving objects over to it. So now when I scale, I'm going to be scaling from the center, which makes it easier. But just to show you, I can also hit Shift. It's Shift. I can also hit Shift and position the 3D cursor here, and then I'm gonna hit right click and go to Set Origin to 3D cursor. And now, if I scale, I'll be scaling around that point. So I can just put this object over here and scale, and now we can be sure that it's exactly 15 centimeters long, and now it's perfectly to scale, so I can just delete the default cube. I don't need it anymore. And yeah, you can do that for every part you want to scale where you're not sure if the measurements are actually correct. So anyway, now we have all the objects that we need. Some of them need to be of different height. I'm not gonna do this accurately just now. I'm just gonna show you quickly how to do it. So right now, all of this is just one object. To make this separate objects, what we need to do is to first right-click it and say convert to mesh, because it's still a curve right now. If we convert this to a mesh, now it's a normal editable 3D object, so we can just hit Shift and select any of the vertices, lines or faces. And if we go into edit mode and select like one face, anyone.
For MV I just set center my viewport.
I use it to set center my viewport. Yeah, not exactly sure what you mean by that, but yeah, use it as you wish. As I said, I'm not a very professional Blender master yet. I'm just learning as I go. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Maybe there's better ways to use all these tools. I'm just telling you how I created this. So if you select any of these faces and then hit Control L on the keyboard, it will select all linked faces as well, so all faces that are connected to it. So I can just hold Shift and select all the faces that are on this object and hit Control L. Basically, I should have gotten all the faces. The problem is, I think that we have like some faces that are not even connected. That's a problem that sometimes occurs when you use SVG as an import format. So to fix this, you don't need to understand what I'm doing now. You just need to follow my example. Go into edit mode, select vertices, hit A on your keyboard to select all of them. A as in all of them. And then hit M, which will merge points that are duplicate points. And you're just gonna choose to merge them by distance. And then you're gonna set the distance to 0. And it will tell you that there are so and so many vertices that have been removed. So basically there were points overlapping each other, and now they have been removed. And now you see that we have some shading artifacts. It looks like this is bulgy, even though it isn't. And this is because Blender by default, now that we connected all these, is shading everything in a smooth way, but doesn't know where it should start and stop smoothing objects. It's just the way it's displayed. To fix that, you just go into this, what's it called? Object Data Properties, go to Normals, and just click on Auto Smooth, and then it's fixed and it looks proper again. All right, now let's do this again. If we go to Edit Mode and select any of these faces and then hit Control L, you can see that now the whole object gets selected. And as I said, all of these objects are now one object inside of Blender. But if we can select a whole object, we can hit P on the keyboard, which will pull it apart. I don't know a good way to tell why it's P. Just hit P, and it will separate the object, and you're just gonna separate it based on selection. So what this does, I have to hit Tab again to go into object mode. What this does is make this a separate object apart from all the other ones.
Eric said you can press L to select an entire object connected.
Yeah, that's what I did. Keep in mind, Eric, that this stream is delayed like forever. It's like 30 seconds delayed, I think. Oh, there's many people from Lexi's Discord in here as well. How many people are watching? Oh, nice. Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing fine. If you guys want to chat with us, you can. There's in the video description. There's a link to my Discord, and you can come in. We have a live staging channel. Oh, I think people are going to bed now. If you want to, you can join the staging channel, and Edda will let you in and talk with us if you like. All right. Now that you have a way to make these all separate objects, you can just do that with every object in here, and you can use scale. Let's see, the arms are a little bit thicker than all the other plates. So if I hit S on the keyboard for scale and then hit any of the axes, I can constrain my scale to this one axis. And I just need to make it thicker, so I'm just gonna hit S for scale and then Z for the Z axis, and then I'm just gonna make the arms a little bit thicker. As I said, if I wanted to make this super accurate, I can use other objects to keep an eye on it. You can also hit N on the keyboard, which will open up this menu here. And here you can see the current scale of everything. So this object is now 5.7 millimeters thick. I'm just gonna hit scale and Z again to make this exactly 5 millimeters. And this is actually the correct measurement for the arm. So now this is a perfect one-to-one representation of this arm. So you can do this with all the other plates too. I'm not gonna do it with every plate now, because it will just take forever to recreate everything. So I'm just gonna delete all the other things for now and just show you how it's done based on this one example. So I'm just gonna put this arm in the center of my screen. I'm gonna hit Shift S to set my cursor, my 3D cursor, back to world origin. Then I'm gonna hit right click and set origin to 3D cursor. So now my origin point for this object is also at the center of the screen. So if I want to do anything to this object again now, if I want to scale it in any direction, it's just gonna work properly from the center. So what I need to do with this arm now is to somehow make it, give it a material that looks proper. To do that, we first need to UV unwrap it, and I'm going to show you what that means and what that does. So let's go into the shading view. The shading view, I also, by the way, I just hit the decimal point on my keyboard when this was off screen. If I hit the decimal point, it will just bring it back into focus. So now this arm has a default material that we assigned earlier, and this default material has different options that we can change. We can, for example, change its base color. We can make it red if we wanted to. We can also change the way that it reflects color, it reflects light. Right now, this is basically a matte object. It's very matte. It doesn't reflect anything. If we change the roughness and we lower the roughness at some point, if the roughness is 0, it becomes like a mirror. So this is this is not rough at all. And if we increase the roughness, it will be like semi-rough. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. We can also make it more or less metallic. Metallic objects have like a certain way that light is reflected. It has to do with if light is bouncing off the surface of the object or actually penetrates into the surface of the object. But I'm not gonna go too deep into why dielectrics and stuff like that, how that works. Just for the sake of it, if it needs to be more metallic, then just select metallic here. So anyway, so the material that we want to recreate is carbon fiber, and carbon fiber, if you think about it, carbon fiber is like these. It's like woven like a basket. And it's made out of strands of carbon, like real actual strands that are woven and pressed into sheets, and then these sheets get laminated together, and this will form the actual carbon fiber object. So just to show you how to put textures on anything, I have downloaded this carbon fiber graphic, which is just an image of how carbon fiber sometimes looks. And this is not how we are going to do this. I'm just showing you why it's not as easy with carbon fiber as it is with other materials. If we just drag and drop this in here, it creates a new node. These are all called nodes because we can connect them with these lines. And I can choose this as the base color. And now you can see that this carbon fiber JPEG, the graphic that looked like this just a second ago, on the object, now it looks like this, which is really weird, right? So the reason for that is if you imagine a globe, like a round globe with the map of the world on it. If you imagine you have a map, a two-dimensional map, and you need to put it on that globe, you need to know how it wraps around this globe. So a texture works like that too. You have a two-dimensional image and you wrap it around a three-dimensional object. And to make that properly, it needs to know where everything goes. And these in 3D, these are called UV coordinates. These are what teach Blender, tell Blender how to wrap a texture around an object. So to create that, what we need to do is we have this carbon fiber node, and since we have this node Wrangler enabled, we can hit Control-T, and it will create mapping coordinates for us. It will tell Blender that this texture should be wrapped around the object based on UV coordinates, but we don't have these coordinates just yet. If we go to the UV editing tab, I know this is complex, but it's a complex tool. I can't make it any easier, sadly. If we go to the UV editing tab, we get like this split view. And basically what we have here is if I, on the right side, if I select any faces, they show up on the left side. And I can select the faces on the left side and hit G to move them somewhere else. And this basically, or I can scale them. And this basically influences how the texture is displayed on the object. So as you can see, if I move it around, the texture moves around too. So how do I use all these faces to properly put this on there? The short answer is I kind of don't. I'm just gonna go and use the what's it called, the vertex view. I'm gonna yeah.
Thomas Sush writes something. Maybe it's interesting for you.
Yeah, this is carbon fiber 3K twill UV mapping. Yeah. Yeah, I will be showing you how to how to properly recreate carbon fiber in a second. I'm just doing this to elaborate on a problem. So I'm just gonna select all the upper points here, and then go to faces. And now we have only the upper face here, and I'm just gonna hit U on my keyboard and say Smart UV Project. And now I have like this this miniature of the arm, and I can move that around. I can scale it, and as you can see, I have the carbon fiber texture on it properly. Now I need to do that with the bottom too. So I'm gonna go to Edit Mode, select the bottom ones, and yep. Then I'm gonna hit U again, Smart UV Project, and now I have those as well and can scale it. Doesn't matter that that the object is larger than the texture now, because if you're outside of that space, just imagine it will just infinitely repeat this texture. It's just like a pattern for it. So this is how that arm would look in Blender if we made it like that. And if you look at it again, by the way, these are different.
Someone is coming to speak.
Right, come in, Eric, if you like.
Or not?
I can invite him to speak.
Yeah.
Eric, you it should work. I think I'm not sure, but I think on Discord you need to have push to talk enabled. Do you? Hi, Eric. How's it going?
Hi. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. All right. So, you got a question, a comment?
Yeah. Like, why can't that be just like a push of a button with all that texture stuff? I've been like struggling with that for weeks.
Yeah, this is actually as easy as it gets. It will only get harder from here, because as you can see, this looks not so good. Yeah, it doesn't look like real carbon fiber. It's just like an image of carbon fiber. We have some reflections on it. We can, if we go into shading, we can decide with the roughness how much reflections we want on it, and we can also put these. We can use the same texture and put this into the roughness channel as well, which will make all the dark bits more reflective than the light bits. So yeah, this looks more interesting, but it still doesn't look any way like real carbon fiber. The problem is, if you look very, very closely at a real piece of carbon fiber, then you will find that these woven layers, they reflect light in two different directions. So if in one direction, if the pattern goes in this direction, the highlights will be in that direction and vice versa. So this is a very complex material, and if you want to realistically recreate it in Blender, you will need a lot more nodes than just these five nodes that we have here. Another problem is this is an image texture, so it's just a JPEG. If you zoom in on it too much, it will get pixelated or blurry. So yeah, it just looks out of focus. And if we want to do nice close-ups, then this will not look really good. The correct way to do it, the good way to do it, is to do it procedurally, which is like use mathematical formulas to recreate what carbon fiber looks like. Just to give you a short example of how this can be achieved. If we, in Blender, the hotkeys that you use in the 3D viewport, you use everywhere else too. So I also here, I use the middle mouse button to pan around. I use the mouse wheel or control middle mouse button to zoom around. And this works here too. And just like here, Shift A lets you add objects. In here, Shift A lets you add new nodes. And there are nodes that are like called shaders. And the shader...
Said use matte finish.
Yeah, wait for it, Thomas. If you add a shader, you can use like let's say what's a good example to show you this? No, I'm just gonna go with texture for now. I'm just gonna use a noise texture, and instead of this, I just put this noise texture into the base color channel, and then you can see that there's just like very faint changing nuances of color in there. If I scale this noise texture, it's easier for you to see how this is called a noise texture, because it's just something noisy. And there's not just noise textures, there's also checker textures. If I use a checker texture, it looks like this. And I can also scale that. Now you can see this is not perfectly symmetrical. If I want to change that, I can either use the UV coordinates that we created above, which makes that perfectly fine. Or I could just use the UV coordinates and scale it so it's perfectly symmetrical. So these checker textures, they also have like an input. They have different inputs, and you can like control with other nodes the way these checkers are created. You can create lines with it instead of checkers. And long story short, what I recommend you do if you ever want to create the most photorealistic carbon fiber material that I can think of is to go to the YouTube channel that is called CG Masters. I'll put a link to that in the video description later. So this YouTube channel, they created a very, very great procedural carbon fiber material. You can also just search for procedural carbon fiber and Blender, and then you will find this. And I created this material and I put it in my library in Blender. I can just load it by going to this view. I can just open the asset browser, which is new to Blender 3. And I can use my FPV assets and just apply this carbon fiber material. And here you can see this node tree. This is the one that you create for this material. It gets a little bit more complex, but it's absolutely worth it. Hang on, I bumped something. All right, so what this does is it creates this checker texture to create lines, and this other checker texture to create lighter lines, and medium light lines, and then it combines them with a new node into 4 different channels. Then it uses some math on it to divide and use it as a UV coordinate for a Voronoi texture. And this Voronoi texture, or Voronoi, creates these bands. And basically, it does this in 2 different directions. So here is a new set of coordinates, and this creates lines in the other direction, which are then divided, blah, 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 and then creates bends in the other direction. And this one in the bottom, it uses another noise texture to create like thin lines in this direction, and another one to create thin lines in the other direction. And then a mix node that also uses the coordinate outputs of those of these checkers that we created up here to mix them in 2 different directions. It's it's a very complex material, but the walkthrough that CG Masters did in this YouTube tutorial, it's really amazing. But as you can see, it's a 26-minute long video just to create a material, and this is just part 1. So there's 2 parts to it. Check it out, it's amazing. And yeah, so the end result is this, is this amazing carbon fiber material that really, we have like a little bit of clipping here. To fix that, we go to view and just make clip start a little smaller. This is how carbon fiber actually is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to look like, and this looks great. So yeah, this just use that. I can only recommend that. And if it's too small, you can just go into UV editing. I'm just gonna use the lower side now because we already have that selected, and you can just make your UVs smaller, and then that will make the texture larger. That's something in between. I actually, to recreate JB's frame, I just counted how many vertical and horizontal lines there were on a certain part of the arm, and then used that. Anyway, so this is basically all the magic of it. Now I have a working object, and I can just duplicate that and then rotate it. Yeah, you can imagine how I put a frame together like that. I just use all the parts that I have, and then hang on, I'm just gonna open my file. Then we end up with something like this. No, this was a shortcut. There's some parts in here that we haven't created yet, but I'm going to show you these parts as well. So this is the finished assembled frame, but not all of it is just carbon plates, carbon sheets. We have like nuts and bolts here, and we have these standoffs. They look very interesting. And I'm gonna show you how to create those too. I'm gonna go to create a new blend file. Gonna delete the default cube. And as I said, if you go to Edit Preferences and Add-Ons, there's one in here that you can enable that is called Bold Factory. And if you have that enabled, you can just hit Shift-A to create a new mesh, and then select Bold. And then it will create any sort of bolt, screw, or nut for you. You can select what you want up here. Is it a bolt or is it a nut? And you can select what type of bit goes in it. Is it an Allen bit, or is it a Torx bit, or is it a Phillips bit? In Germany we call them Schlitz and Kreuz. There's not even any Schlitz, there's only Kreuz. Yeah, I guess you don't use that with these types of nuts anyway. So, and then you can select what type of head you want for it. You can use a cap head, which is usually used for motor screws, because they last a bit longer, or you can use a dome head, which is usually used on the upper parts of the frame, and you can even create countersunk screws. Yeah, these are the ones where the carbon is milled out to take up the inside of the screw. Yeah, just gonna go with a dome head for now, and then you can basically just adjust whatever you want, whatever you need, and then hit right click and go to shade smooth to make it look properly shaded. And then you can see as these parts here are not shaded properly, and just like before, go to this area here, normals, and select auto smooth, and then it looks fine again. And now you have one screw, and you just create all of the screws by measuring them with the calipers, and yeah, basically recreate all the screws like that. And now I'm gonna show you how to create a cool looking material for them, because they are made out of metal. So I'm gonna go to shading, create a new material. I just call it screw material. And these are gonna be made out of metal, so I'm gonna select metallic. And
Eric said good night.
good night, Eric. Oh, it's getting late. We are like 25 minutes from the end of the stream already. Wow. Yeah, but we can make it. We create this material, set it to metallic, and then we add with Shift A new node, and we're going to use a texture node that is called Musgrave, the Musgrave texture. And then we're not going to plug that into the color channel, we're going to plug that into the roughness channel. And that will make this look unevenly rough. And then we're going to set detail to maximum. And we're gonna scale it a bit, and we're gonna change the dimension of it, make it a little smaller. Maybe the scale is a bit too much too. All right, if we hit Shift, Control, and click on the texture itself, then we can see what the texture looks like. So this is what Musgrave creates. It creates this well, let's call it a grungy texture, and the amount of detail you select creates how complex the grunge texture is, and the dimension, well, it just sort of also influences the grunginess. If we plug something into the roughness channel, this means everything that is black will be completely like a mirror. It will just completely reflect everything. Everything that is white will be completely rough and reflect nothing. And so if we hit Shift, Control, and click the principled BSDF shader again, then this is what it looks like. That's not very metallic yet. We can add something to change this on the way to the roughness channel. We're gonna hit Shift A and create it's in the color menu. It's called an RGB curve. Just put it in there. And if we hit Shift, Control, and click on the RGB curve, then we can see what this does. If we raise the left part of the curve, then nothing will be completely black, so it's all just gonna be a little bit rough. And if we lower the right part, nothing will be completely white. And if we look at the material while we are doing that, we can just dial it in. We can add additional points in the center of the curve, and we can use that to create like a really cool looking metal material. Doesn't need to look like need to look perfectly metalish. I don't know how to call it. Just needs a little variation, because something that is just perfectly shiny never looks realistic. So just give it some roughness in there. You can scale that maybe a bit. Let's see. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think actually I'm already pretty happy with this. Yeah, maybe some little rougher parts. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so like this we created a cool looking metal material. We can also plug this Musgrave texture into the normal channel, but we need another vector node, which we are going to use a bump map. So as I said, Blender is very complex, sadly, but the tutorials that I recommended in the beginning by Andrew Price are very cool to start learning Blender. And as you can see, if we add a little bit of a bump, that makes it look really cool. Yeah, that's a cool looking metal material, I think. So this is the way how you can create any metallic materials. And you can still change the base color of things. If you want a red metal screw, if you want to like color it, JB's frame has some purple parts in it. This is how you can do it. So now that you know how you can create the carbon fiber sheets and you can know how to create the bolts and screws, the only thing left that we still need is the standoff. I'm gonna show you how to create that. I'm just gonna delete the screw for now, and I'm gonna hit Shift A and select a new mesh, and I'm gonna create a cylinder. So this cylinder should be, let me guess, so the diameter is roughly, I think, 6 millimeters. I'm too lazy to measure it now. So I'm just gonna go with a radius of 3 millimeters and a height of, let's say, 3 centimeters. Just for having any dimension right now. This is probably a bit too high. Let's go with 2.5 centimeters. Not meters, 2.5 centimeters. And let's go with a little wider radius. Let's go with 3.5 millimeters. That's more like it. All right. So now we have a very basic cylinder. And what we need to do is we want these upper and lower parts of it knurled. It's called knurling, which makes it rougher and easier to grip the material. To recreate this knurling effect that I saw on JB's standoffs, I'm just gonna show you how I did it. We go into edit mode by hitting the tab key, and then we're gonna hit Control R to make a subdivision. And if we don't click it yet, but move the mouse wheel, we can do multiple subdivisions. I'm gonna use 2 for now. And then I'm gonna use the scale option and hit Z on the keyboard to just dial them into the position where I want them. Then I'm gonna make this, basically repeat the same step again, and I'm gonna scale that along the Z axis and up here, about here, I think. All right, now if I want to select faces, I'm going to select faces here, and I want these upper and lower ring parts completely selected. If I hit Alt on the keyboard and go near this edge and click here, I can select the whole ring. And if I hit Shift 2, I can select the lower ring as well. Then I'm gonna hit S for scale, and I'm gonna hit Shift Z because I want to scale in any other direction than Z. I'm just gonna make it a little wider. All right, the basic shape already resembles the standoff on JB's frame very good. And now we need to subdivide these two. I'm gonna go with Control R, and I'm gonna use, let's say, I think 6 should be sufficient. Let's go with six subdivisions. I'm gonna do the same here. Whoops, I clicked the wrong button. You need to left click and then click the right mouse button. All right, now I have all these faces, but they look nothing like what we need. So what we need to do is we need to select all of them. I'm just gonna go with the front view and make this, use this X-ray button so I can see through the object. I can see all sides. And then I'm gonna select all of these. And I'm gonna select all of these. And then right click them, and then there's an option that is called poke faces. What poke faces does is for each square face that I have, it's just gonna put an X inside and gives it a middle point. And now what we can do is we can go to the edge selection. I'm not gonna make this more transparent anymore. And we're gonna select like all faces around one of these squares. And then we're going to select and go to select similar by length. And then that totally didn't work. Okay, let's make this differently. We're gonna select one of the faces in the inside, one of the points, I mean, the vertex. And we're gonna go select similar, and we're gonna go to select all of them with a similar amount of adjacent faces. This will give us a selection of all the points at the center, and then I'm gonna go select invert. And now I have all the outlines that I wanted. All right. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna right click and say dissolve. No, I'm gonna go to the edges first, and then I'm gonna go right click and say dissolve edges. And what this does is it just removes all the edges that I had selected. So now I have these diamond shapes here. All right, it's very complicated, this 3D stuff. I'm so sorry. It's just I'm just letting you know how I did this. I'm not. I don't think it will be like you can recreate this in 5 minutes now, but I'm just teaching you how I did it. So I'm gonna go into X-ray view again and select all these faces that we now have. There's some missing. Come on, you two. All right. And then I'm gonna go out of X-ray view. And then I'm gonna go, then I right click and select poke faces again. And now I have more of these diagonal lines, but there's a poke offset option here. If I just use that, and just don't use it too much, just a little amount. I'm just using it in the wrong direction. Hang on. It doesn't need to be negative, but positive. That's too much. Oh, damn, I clicked. Hang on, Control Z. Do it again, poke faces. And I'm just gonna go with 0.0005. That's about it. All right, perfect. And now I have this knurling effect that I wanted to recreate. And this doesn't look right. It's not smooth properly. So I'm just gonna go right click and say shade smooth. Now this looks like shit. So I'm gonna go to normals and select auto smooth. And I can actually dial this in where I want the smoothing to occur. So I'm just using 23 degrees now. And now I have the standoff, which looks just like the real thing. So this is the most complex part, I think, that you need to create to recreate JB's frame in 3D. And I can go to shading and give this my screw material again. And look at that, how beautiful it looks. Awesome. All right, so if I go back to the finished frame, then you can see all of it in action. So these are the standoffs that I created. These are all the plates. This is actually a battery pad, and for that I made just a plain black material that is a little reflective, and all the screws are created with the bolt factory. And this is how it looks. I also put one more face in there that has the Lumineer logo on it, which is just an image texture. And yeah, that's it. This is how you create a frame, an FPV frame in 3D. Now let's go to render this. I'm gonna delete all the lights that I already created, and I also created a plane, which you can do by Shift A and then plane, and you just need to go to a side view and move it around with G and then see that it's at the right position. I already did that, and I created this floor. Don't mind this black rectangle. It's just the camera, and for some reason it's visible in here. Anyway, so I created a floor, which is just a plane, and for that plane I created a material which is just it's just basically just black and has a little bit lowered roughness. So on this material, if we want to render a view of this beautiful, beautiful frame, then we can go into this render tab here. This will let us select the render engine that we want to use, and I recommend you use Cycles for this. This is Cycles is the pretty one. Eevee is the real-time one that you could use for gaming. Sometimes it's good to use Eevee if you need to render things fast, but if you want it pretty, use Cycles. And the important part is to select GPU compute, so it uses all the power of your graphics card, which is usually faster than just rendering it on the CPU. And you have denoise options both for the preview in the viewport and for the actual render. And I suggest you set both of them to the optics denoiser if you have an NVIDIA card which can do that. Because optics is just way faster than the open image denoise. This is the other one that you can select, which is the default. Optics is just faster, way faster. All right, so, and in this one that looks like a printer, and this icon, you can select the resolution that you want to render it to. And you can also set a path where you want to save it to. Just gonna call it test render X, because I don't know if it saves that. I don't want to save it over something that I already have rendered. You can select the image format that you want to use. I just use JPEG for now because it's just draft quality anyway, and I use 90% compression. That's fine. And if I hit F12 on the keyboard, this is going to render it. And as you can see, it looks very dark, and it's also a different angle. That's odd, right? That's because we are always rendering from the camera view, and we haven't set that up yet. If you click on the camera icon, you can see the image through the camera. And if you go to View over here, there's one option that says Lock to Object, Camera to View. This is off by default, which means what you see when you click on camera will actually be something like that. This outline represents the part that the camera is actually seeing, and you can usually just move the camera as an object, and it will work like this. So I'm moving the camera right now, and I'm seeing what the camera is seeing, and this is completely different from how the viewport works. So to make it easier, I just zoom in until I see everything inside the frame, And then I'm gonna hit lock camera to view. And now if I change my view, it just moves the camera to wherever I'm looking. So this is just, I can just adjust the camera the same way that I navigate through the 3D viewport. In some situations, this is just easier. All right, something else interesting that you can do with the camera is if you have the camera selected on your scene and you go to the camera icon, is that you can adjust the depth of field. If I enable this, I can actually select the f-stop for my aperture. If you're familiar with photography, you know what that means. If I have a lower number here, that means I have a wider open aperture, which means my depth of field is going to be very shallow. So I'm going to go with a depth of field of with an f-stop number of 4. And then it is completely out of focus because the distance we are focusing on is 0.23 meters from the camera, which is a little bit too close. I'm just gonna drag this and we can go, you can just hold shift while dragging it so it gets smaller increments. As you can see, you now have a nice depth of field distribution here. If it's too shallow, you can just adjust the F number, make it larger. If you want it even more shallow, you can just make it smaller. For now, let's just go with something like that. All right, let's go hop out of the camera icon for now because this is the camera we just set up. This is how it looks at the object. But there's something missing. We need lights. That's why it's so dark in this scene. And we can just hit Shift A and go to lights. And there's different types of lights that we can add. I usually use only one of the following. I use sunlights or area lights. Sunlights, it's just a global light that illuminates everything in the scene. And area light is just like a, it's just more like a light that you would set up in a studio environment. So let's use area light for this. And as you can see, we have now a area which represents this light. Let's say this light was 50 centimeters wide, and at the moment it's a square light shape. I'm gonna hit G to grab this and move it upwards a bit. You can use the side view, which makes it easier to position this. I want it in front of the object, and I want it behind the camera. And I can just go into the 3D viewport again and position it roughly behind the camera, and then use this icon here on the light to point it at the object. Now it's pointing at the object, and if I want to rotate it, I can hit R and use the Z key to turn it. All right, perfect. If I go back to the camera view again, and I'm changing into this fourth view here, which is the rendered view, you can see that now my object gets lit from the camera direction, and I can adjust the brightness by adjusting the power of the light. And usually the light that is behind my camera is just gonna be a fill light. It just makes everything, I just use it to lighten the darkest areas that I'm gonna be having. But the most interesting lights are not gonna be coming from the camera. I'm gonna add another one of these lights. I can just duplicate this one and move it around. With Shift D, I can make a duplicate. I'm just gonna position it here, and from the front view, I'm just gonna put it somewhere over here, so it's actually behind the frame. And I'm also gonna be pointing it at the frame 2. And now, if I go back to my camera view, you can see that the light coming from the opposite side of the object makes it way more interesting. I'm just gonna turn off the depth of field for a minute here once again. And then I'm gonna go to that light and hit G to grab it, and Z, and I'm just gonna move it a little lower. Yeah, somewhere around there. And I'm gonna move it a little bit to the side, somewhere here. Also gonna rotate it a little bit and make it maybe a little smaller and not that super intense. And now you can see this looks interesting. And I can add more lights and maybe even color them. I can duplicate that light and put it over here, point it at the object again. I'm gonna give this one a little bluish tint. Let's go back to the camera view. Oh, that looks nice actually. Let's move it a little bit over here. Oh yeah, that looks good. Give it a little bit more power. Nice. I think the main light in here, this is just too small. Needs to be a little bit larger and with a little less power. Yeah, something like that. All right, so this is how you light your scene to make it more interesting. And I'm just gonna go and do a quick detail shot. So I'm gonna go to the camera again, enable depth of field again, and we're gonna dial that in. See that the logo is nice and clean. And it can be a little wider, the field of view, it's just a bit too shallow. Something like that, that looks nice. All right, now if you have set up everything that the way you want, I would normally just add one more light over here to give it a nice rim light on this side of the standoff. But you already know how to create those now. And to render this, I'm gonna hit Control F12, and this will actually bring up the real render view, and this will render it properly. And this will take a while. As you can see, it creates up to 4,000 samples, and it just creates the first half of the image first, and then the other half second. And yeah, I'm just gonna lower the sample size for now to make it faster, which will not give it as good results, but it will still look good. Hang on. All right. So I reduced the sample count a little bit so that you can see the result, because my graphics card is already really fast, but my graphics card is also encoding this 4K 60 FPS video in the background. Yeah, and so it's a heavy load to also create photorealistic 3D renderings at the same time. Also, it does all this video capturing nonsense on the side. So yeah, this just takes some time. All right, but now it's finished. This is how it looks. Is anybody still watching? Oh, we still have people watching. This type of screw also determines the great hardness of the screw. Oh yeah, that's right. All right. Yeah, that's basically it. I took a few shortcuts here and there. I only showed you how to do this to one part of the frame, but it works the same way for all parts of the carbon sheets. And I'm gonna go quickly to my camera again. So we recreated the carbon sheets first by just tracing the outlines, then extruding them. Then I showed you how to use UV unwrapping to put textures on it, and I showed you a good resource on where to get a very, very good looking carbon fiber material. Well, you cannot download the material, but it's a YouTube tutorial on how to create it, and it takes some time, but you can easily recreate it. And So then you have a really good looking carbon fiber material. I showed you how to make this knurling effect for the standoffs and how to use Bolt Factory to create the screws. And everything else is just using G on the keyboard to grab and move things around. Use R to rotate things around. And if you're rotating around the wrong pivot point, you use the 3D cursor to change the origin of an object, like I showed you earlier. So this is our final image. I'm gonna show you some other renderings of this beautiful frame that I made earlier. I did some more lighting, different lighting with more colors. Yeah, so it's not that hard. But it's complex and it takes time to learn it. And if you want to learn that, I totally encourage you to check out Blender Guru, the Blender Guru channel by Andrew Price on YouTube, and the CG Masters channel as well for this beautiful, beautiful carbon fiber material. And yeah, everything else you'll get to learn on the way. As you imagined, we cannot create something like this completely within the 2 hours time frame of the live stream. So I took a few shortcuts, but yeah, this is how it's done, and I hope you had fun. All right, this is basically the end of our live stream. What do you think, Edda? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so from the very special other Discord that you don't talk about, we have VTX Slayer still watching. Thank you for sticking with us. And Eric sent me a message that I didn't get yet. Oh, he says, great stream. Thank you, Eric. And yeah, this brings us to the end of our live stream, I think. I don't know how much of a delay I have on the live stream now, so I'm just gonna talk for a bit because if I hit end stream and it's not finished submitting it to YouTube yet, then it will be an abrupt end. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting to you somehow. Yeah, let's see if JB likes it enough to use it on his own live stream. And Lumineer, if you're watching this and you think this looks good, I could do that to other frames too, if you just supplied me with an infinite amount of cool-looking FPV frames. No, just kidding. Everyone who has cool-looking FPV parts that I can always use and wants a cool render of it, just send me cool stuff. Just contact me and let me know. This is a way to get sponsored.